She didn't mean to cry. Not here, not. Under the amber light of a bar tucked so far from her world, it didn't even show up on her GPS. But the moment Isabelle Hart sat down and heard the soft jazz humming from a dusty jukebox, something inside her gave way. It wasn't the drink in front of her. It wasn't the bartender's small-town smile. It was the man sitting 2 stools away, and the way he talked about love without ever saying the word. She'd only asked one question, simple, offhand. If you had one wish, who would you use it for? The man didn't even hesitate. His answer wasn't about himself. Wasn't about money, or dreams, or revenge. My daughter, he said, eyes focused on the worn ring he still wore. I'd wish for her to remember what her mom's laugh sounded like. And just like that, the CEO in the $1,000 heels forgot she was ever powerful. She didn't see him as greasy or rough, or someone beneath her. She saw a man who loved without needing to prove it. That was 3 nights ago. Now, Isabelle sat in the same booth again, pretending she was here for the wings or the peace or the late hours. But she wasn't. She was here because Noah Grant was. Noah never paid much attention to who walked in or out of the bar. He had enough on his mind rent due, a daughter's school play, a fuel pump job sitting half open back at the garage. But he noticed her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, in a way that didn't try. Not because she dressed like she came from a world he didn't understand, but because she listened. Not many people did anymore. She didn't flinch when he talked about his wife's accident. Didn't judge when he mentioned the nights he forgot to eat because Lily needed help with math homework. She just sat there. Quiet. Real. Present. Isabelle had everything her old self once dreamed of. A private driver. Glass penthouse. Company shares stretching across 3 continents. But she'd never felt further from herself, until she asked a stranger about his wish. Now she came back each night not for escape, but for clarity. They didn't talk about work. Didn't talk about power. They talked about the stars. About books they never finished. About people they missed. Tonight, Noah pulled a folded paper from his wallet. A crayon drawing. Lilies. A stick figure family. A girl. A man. And recently added a woman with long hair and high heels. Isabelle stared at it, speechless. She said, "It's you," Noah said softly. "I told her that's not how life works. That people like you don't stick around." He laughed, nervously, after. But Isabelle didn't. She couldn't. She hadn't realized someone might want her to stay, not just because she was useful, or brilliant, or valuable, but because she made someone's little girl feel safe enough to draw her into a family. Back at the bar entrance, someone snapped a photo. Isabelle didn't see it, but someone else did. Marcus Lang, sitting in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows, watching his former partner genuinely laugh with a man who had grease under his fingernails. He sent the photo to a contact. Subject line: "We found her weak spot." Isabelle didn't know about the photo. She just knew Noah had laughed tonight and that something about his laugh made her want to come back tomorrow. But when she stepped outside into the cold air, her phone buzzed. A news alert. A headline with her name. And a photo. Her heart stopped. Not because it was scandalous. Not because it was cruel. But because for the first time, she looked happy. And the world had seen it. The cold air bit at her skin. But Isabelle barely felt it. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, staring at the screen in her hand. There it was, her name in bold, nestled between gossip and scandal. Billionaire CEO Isabelle Hart, spotted, cozying up with unknown mechanic in small-town baromance or breakdown. Her fingers hovered above the screen, as if touching it might erase the damage. But the image said everything. She was smiling. Not the rehearsed kind she gave on magazine covers. Not the confident smirk she wore in boardrooms. It was small. Real. Almost shy. And now, the world had it. Inside the bar, Noah finished his drink and looked around for her. She was just here, wasn't she? He stepped outside, wiping his hands on a bar napkin, scanning the street. There she was, standing like she'd seen a ghost. "You okay?" he asked. Isabelle, startled, fumbled to put her phone away, then forced a smile. Yeah, just cold." But the lie hung there between them like fog on glass. She didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Not because of the headline, but because of what it meant. That world, the one she had spent a decade building, had always come with rules. Don't show weakness. Don't get distracted. Don't let them see you bleed. But Noah didn't make her feel weak. He made her feel like a person again. Still, the message from her assistant that followed shook her. Marcus is requesting an emergency board meeting. Claims to have evidence of ethical compromise that could risk investor confidence. Isabelle knew what that meant. He was coming for her, and he'd use Noah Horlilius ammunition. The next evening, Isabelle returned to the bar. Not in her usual heels, not in anything sharp. She wore a hoodie, minimal makeup, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Noah didn't ask questions. He slid a cup of coffee in front of her. Not a cocktail, not a scotch. Just warmth. They didn't talk about the photo. Not yet. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and slid something across the table. A worn-out book. "Found it last night," she said. "You mentioned it once, that you never finished reading it to Lily." Noah looked down. Charlotte's Web. His chest tightened. "I didn't think you remembered," he said softly. She looked at him, her eyes raw and unguarded. "I remember everything you say." Meanwhile, Marcus wasn't just watching, he was moving. He leaked the story to 2 more outlets. Called in favors. Booked the boardroom at Heart Tech HQ for 10 a.m. Monday. His case? That Isabelle was in an emotional spiral and compromising the company's reputation by fraternizing with someone under investigation. The last part wasn't even true, but the photo made it believable. And in business, perception is reality. That same night, Noah finally asked her, "Isabelle, who are you really running from?" She didn't answer at first, just stared at the ring of condensation her coffee cup left on the table. Then, quietly, "Myself." Noah didn't push. Didn't need to. But later, as he walked her to her car, she reached into her glove box and pulled something out. A crumpled, printed page. A purchase order. From her own company. Noah's eyes scanned it. Acquisition of Private Lot 68B. Grant Automotive. His body stiffened. "That's my garage." She nodded slowly. "I didn't know until yesterday," she whispered. "Marcus is trying to buy you out. He did it under a shell subsidiary." Noah stepped back. Why would he do that? She looked at Hymies, filled with guilt, fear, and something like helplessness. "Because I've been spending time with you. Because Lily drew a picture. Because, for once, I care about something real and that makes me a threat." Noah didn't say anything for a long time. Just the sound of passing cars. A flickering street lamp above them. Finally, he said, "So what now?" Isabelle exhaled. "Now I have to choose. Between everything I've built and everything I never thought I'd want." Back at his house, Lily sat curled up in bed, her drawing pad beside her. She looked out the window toward the stars she and her mom used to count. She smiled softly. "I think Miss Isabelle is sad," she whispered to no one in particular, then added a new figure to her drawing. A small hand in the CEO's hand. Hers. As if to say, "You don't have to go through it alone anymore." Isabelle Hart had faced down billion-dollar negotiations. She'd gone toe-to-toe with world leaders, tech moguls, and men who thought CEO meant she got lucky. But sitting across from Noah Grant that morning, watching the weight shift in his eyes, she realized this was the first time she truly feared losing something she couldn't rebuild. Not a company. Not an empire. A connection. Noah stood by the kitchen window, arms crossed, the paper in his hand crinkled at the edges. The order. The deal. The betrayal. "I thought you were different," he said finally, voice low. "But maybe all your world knows how to do is take." Isabelle didn't flinch. She didn't defend. Instead, she said, "I didn't come here to take. I came here to breathe." That silence again, the kind that hurts more than yelling. Lily padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Miss Isabelle?" she blinked. "You're here for pancakes?" Isabelle managed a soft smile. "If that's still allowed." Lily nodded, grabbed her hand, and led her to the table, oblivious to the tension in the room. Noah watched them, and even though the anger still stirred inside him, he saw something in the way Lily leaned into her, the way Isabelle looked at his daughter like she was something sacred. And for a flicker of a moment, he softened. Later that day, Isabelle returned to her penthouse own last time. The space felt colder now, too bright, too perfect. She didn't belong here anymore. Not after the garage. Not after Lily's drawing. Not after pancakes. On the marble counter sat an envelope. Thick, embossed, from Marcus. Inside, board meeting schedule. Legal notice. A single sentence. "You have until Monday to resign quietly. The press gets everything." Everything meant Noah. It meant the photo. It meant dragging a grieving father and his child into a firestorm just to make her pay. And Marcus wouldn't stop there. He'd take the garage. He'd bleed the story dry. He'd win. Unless she made it impossible. That evening, Isabelle called an old contact in the press. Not one of the tabloids. Not a gossip mill. A truth teller. An investigative journalist she once helped years ago, back when the truth mattered more than spin. "I have a story," she said into the phone, "but not about my love life. About Marcus Lang, the shell companies, the acquisitions, the fraud buried under Hearttex partnerships." A pause. Then, "I'm listening." Meanwhile, Noah stared at the ceiling in his quiet house. Lily fast asleep beside him, after a storybook and warm milk. His tools lay untouched in the garage. Work orders ignored. His heart was louder than his thoughts. He wanted to be angry. He should be angry. But when he looked at that drawing, Lily made Isabelle holding her hand something shifted. She hadn't run away when things got messy. She'd stayed. She showed up in the morning. Let Lily climb into her lap. Ate pancakes, with syrup, running down her sleeve. That's not what takers do. That's what people do when they want to belong. And just don't know how. The next night, Isabelle didn't show up at the bar. Noah waited. 2 drinks. 3 hours. Nothing. He left without asking anyone. But something gnawed at him. Back home, Lily peeked through the front window. "She didn't come tonight," she whispered. Noah knelt beside her. "No, she didn't." Lily looked up. "Did she stop liking us?" He paused, then gently said, "Sometimes people leave, sweetheart, even if they don't want to." But Isabelle hadn't left. She was preparing for war. She stood before a small group of attorneys, a stack of files beside her. Every contract Marcus had manipulated. Every shell company used to buy land. Every penny traced back to illegal holdings. She had it all. And she was done being afraid. Sunday evening. One day before the board meeting, Noah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. 1 sentence. Check tomorrow's Times. Page A2. He had no idea what that meant. Until the morning came. The paper dropped onto his porch like any other Monday. But the front page didn't carry tech gossip. It carried truth. Whistleblower reveals Hearttex scandal. CEO Isabelle Hart risks everything to expose internal corruption. Noah froze. Beneath the headline was a quote. "The only thing worth building is something you'd protect with your life. I've finally found mine." His breath caught. He sat down, and he whispered not with anger, but something softer. Damn it, she did it. The boardroom was silent, too silent. No whispered power plays, no clinking coffee mugs, no pre-meeting banter, just 12 sharply dressed executives seated in a room of glass and steel, all staring at the same woman who once walked in like thunder. But today, Isabelle Hart walked in like a storm that had already hit. The morning light caught the edge of her jaw, her expression unreadable, controlled. But something in her eyes had changed. She wasn't defending herself. She was done playing defense. At the head of the table sat Marcus Lang, smiling that polished smile. Smug, calculated, confident this would be her final day as CEO. He slid a document toward the center. Motion to remove Miss Hart on the basis of ethical misconduct and press-damaging behavior, he said smoothly. Effective immediately. A few eyes flicked toward Isabelle. Some pity, some curiosity. None of them knew what she was holding behind her back, figuratively and literally. She didn't touch the document. Instead, she placed a thick folder on the table. No words. Just facts, evidence, paper trails, confidential communications Marcus thought were buried. Then, she looked him dead in the eye. "You thought I'd fold," she said calmly. "But I stopped building empires for people like you the moment I realized what home actually feels like." 3 hours later, Marcus Lang was escorted from the building. Not in handcuffs yet, but the investigation had begun. Investors were alerted. His shares frozen. The press was already spinning. Isabelle Hart exposes partner in stunning turnaround. Not a romance, a revolution. But Isabelle didn't stay to soak it in. She left through the side door. No limo, no cameras. Just a rideshare car and a folded paper in her hand. Not from the board, from Lily. A note that read, "We made extra pancakes, just in case you come back." Noah sat in the garage that evening, watching Lily scribble on cardboard with crayons. The morning headline lay nearby, its edges curling in the July heat. He hadn't called, hadn't texted, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know what to say to a woman who just burned down her kingdom for him. He was under the hood of a rusty pickup when the door creaked open. He didn't look up right away, until a quiet voice said, "Still smells like oil and burnt coffee." He turned. There she was. Worn jeans, faded hoodie, no security, no armor. Just Isabelle. Not the CEO, not the headline. Just the woman who once asked about his wish. They didn't rush into each other's arms. Didn't make a speech. She walked up, slowly, and handed him the note from Lily. She said I should bring it myself this time. Noah read it again, then looked at her, really looked. Eyes tired but alive. Hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from finally letting go. "You didn't have to do all that," he said. "I know," she whispered, "but I wanted to." That night, they sat on the back porch while Lily slept inside, her window still glowing from her nightlight. The stars were out, not bright like the city, but honest. Scattered, messy, and real. "I used to think success was about who noticed you," Isabelle said. "But now I think it's about who waits for you." Noah glanced at her. "I wasn't sure you'd come back." She smiled gently. "I wasn't sure you'd want me to." Inside, Lily stirred and came padding out with her blanket, rubbing her eyes. Isabelle opened her arms without hesitation, and Lily curled into her like it was the most natural thing in the world. Noah watched, and for the first time in years, he let himself really hope, that maybe, just maybe, love could begin again, even here. The next day, something small but enormous happened. Isabelle walked into the garage with a tray of coffee. Regular. No espresso. No cream almond foam nonsense. Just black, strong, and slightly burned. Noah laughed. "You're adapting." She shrugged. I still don't know how to fix cars, but I can ruin coffee like a pro. Then she handed him a folder. I bought the land back, she said. Under my name this time. No board, no tricks. It's yours. Permanently. Noah blinked. Why would you do that? She looked up at him, and her voice broke just a little. Because you gave me something that never needed a contract piece. Later that evening, while Lily sketched beside the jukebox in the bar, Noah reached for Isabelle's hand across the booth. I don't know what we are yet, he said honestly. But I know I don't want to stop finding out. Isabelle didn't say anything. She just nodded and squeezed his hand back. Outside, rain had started to fall. But inside, something had just begun to bloom. The rain came softly, like a memory. It tapped against the bar windows, while the jukebox played something old and slow, something that made you remember who you used to be. Isabelle Hart leaned into the booth, her hand still gently wrapped around Noah's. They didn't need words tonight. Not after everything that had been torn down and everything quietly rising in its place. But even in the softest moments, reality waits just around the corner. 2 days after the expose, Marcus Lang resurfaced. Not with power, not with boardroom votes, but with spite. He released a private recording. A moment out of context, Isabelle's voice from a strategy call a year ago, sounding cold and calculated. If we have to bulldoze a few mom and pop shops to scale, so be it. No names, no addresses, but enough to stir doubt. The media latched on. Isabelle Hart's change of heart too late? Hero or hypocrite? Noah saw it on his phone that morning while fixing an alternator. He didn't show Isabelle, but she already knew. Because that night, she didn't come by. Not to the bar. Not to the garage. Not even to bring Lily her usual evening snack. Instead, she sat alone in a motel room just outside town barefoot, hair damp from the shower, heart back in that same war she thought she'd ended. The voice in the video didn't sound like her anymore. It was her, but not this version. Not the version who read bedtime stories and laughed at oil stains on her jeans. But the world didn't care about that. The world cared about headlines. And Marcus had delivered one more wound on his way out. Back at home, Lily drew a picture of a lighthouse. She told Noah, "It keeps boats from getting lost." He stared at it for a long time. Maybe Isabelle wasn't a boat. Maybe she was the one building a light in someone else's storm, and no one had ever done it for her. The next morning, Isabelle returned. No makeup, no armor, just her and a paper bag with breakfast sandwiches. She set it on Noah's workbench without a word. But before she turned to leave, he caught her hand. "I saw the clip," he said softly. She nodded once. "I figured. You're not that person anymore." "I was, though," she whispered. "And now they'll never let me forget it." Noah stepped closer. "Then forget them," he said. "The world will always find something to blame. But Lily doesn't care about your board meetings. And I don't care about Marcus. I care about the woman who brings burnt coffee and sings badly to Take It Easy when she thinks no one's listening." A tear escaped before she could stop it. "Why do you believe in me?" "Because you never asked me to. You just showed up." That night, Isabelle stayed for dinner. Lily made fancy mac and cheese, adding goldfish crackers on top like croutons. They ate at the small kitchen table with paint stains and a flickering overhead light. And somehow, it felt more like home than any penthouse ever had. Later, while Lily brushed her teeth, Noah turned to Isabelle. "I want you to know something," he said. "Even if this doesn't turn into forever, you gave us something we didn't even know we were missing." She looked up. "What's that?" "Warmth." But outside, trouble still brewed. Marcus wasn't done. He'd partnered with a rival firm, and together, they were preparing a hostile pitch to buy out what was left of Hartech's private shares. He didn't want to ruin her name. He wanted to erase her completely. The next morning, Isabelle received an offer. 8 figures, immediate payout, full walkaway. All she had to do was sign. No more press. No more board meetings. No more ghosts. She could disappear into peace. But she didn't. Instead, she printed the offer, folded it, and brought it to the garage. Noah raised an eyebrow. Big decision? She handed him the page, then took a deep breath. I'm not going to sell. He looked at her. You sure? I used to think leaving meant freedom, but now I know it just means you carry your regrets somewhere else. Noah smiled. That's a hell of a thing to give up. Isabelle nodded. Maybe, but now I have something better. What's that? She glanced over her shoulder where Lily was laughing, half hidden behind a tool cabinet, covered in grease smudges. Something I want to stay and build with. That night, they danced in the garage. No music, just the humming of machines. And a little girl, pretending to DJ, on an overturned bucket. And in that small moment, where nothing big happened, Isabelle realized this was the happiest she'd ever been. Not because she was winning, but because she wasn't running anymore. The sun rose gently over the town, casting long golden rays across cracked pavement and faded rooftops. Inside the garage, Isabelle Hart stood by the open bay door, sipping coffee from a chipped mug that read, "One Dad." She smiled when she realized she'd accidentally grabbed Noah's. But she didn't put it down. She didn't want to, because this was where she belonged now. It had been 1 week since she'd turned down the buyout. 1 week since Marcus Lang tried and failed to tank her company. He'd overplayed his hand. In his bitterness, he underestimated the people watching, closely employees, vendors, even shareholders, tired of ego games. When Isabelle stood up at the emergency board meeting, she didn't plead. She didn't defend. She just told the truth. I was lost. I built a tower so tall, I forgot what the ground felt like. But someone reminded me that leadership isn't standing above people. It's standing beside them. And for the first time, the room didn't feel like war. It felt like something waking up. They voted. And she won. Not just control of Hart Tech, but herself. Later that day, she didn't celebrate at a 5-star rooftop. She went straight to the auto shop, where Noah was fixing a busted radiator and Lily was reading aloud from a crumpled princess book she found in the waiting area. Guess what? Isabelle said as she stepped inside. Noah wiped his hands on a rag, squinting toward her. Let me guess. You got offered a movie deal about your life. She grinned. Close. I got my company back. He paused. So, are you going back to the city? She hesitated, then walked up to him slowly. I'm bringing the company here. His brow lifted. To the middle of nowhere? To where the people are real. To where little girls wear tiaras while reading to engines. To where I remember what it means to feel like a human being. Lily looked up. Is that good news? Noah crouched beside her. That's the best kind. That weekend, the town held its fall fair. It wasn't much hay bales, string lights, hand-carved pies on plastic tables. But to Isabelle, it was more magical than any gala she'd ever attended. She wore jeans. She let Lily braid her hair. She slow danced with Noah to an old country song while dusk settled in layers of amber and lavender. You're different now, he whispered. I feel different. He leaned in closer. I liked you before. She smiled. But now? He kissed her softly, like a promise. Now I could fall in love with you. They didn't rush it. They didn't move in the next day. They just kept showing up for each other. Noah kept fixing cars. Isabelle started a Hart Tech rural innovation fund bringing jobs and STEM labs to small towns that had been forgotten. Lily? She just kept being Lily. A dreamer, a dancer. A girl who believed anyone could be a hero if they tried hard enough. One night, as Isabelle tucked Lily into bed, the little girl asked, Are you gonna be my new mommy? Isabelle froze. Do you want me to be? Lily nodded. Only if you love us. Isabelle's eyes shimmered. I already do. 6 months later, they stood in the backyard of the home they'd bought together, one with squeaky steps and overgrown roses. Noah held Isabelle's hand. Lily wore a flower crown and danced barefoot in the grass. And there, under a canopy of fairy lights and stars, Noah whispered the only words that could make her heart race faster than any boardroom battle. Marry me. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't hesitate. Yes. She used to rule boardrooms. Now, she ruled bedtime stories, and bake sales, and rainy Sunday mornings, with pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. She used to chase power. Now, she just held love. And it never slipped through her fingers again.